If you haven't heard the story of Morgan Bettinger, it's one you should definitely be familiar with. Now, Morgan's story surrounds flimsy allegations of racism that ended up ruining her life, and the BLM activists who made them being propelled into the spotlight and suffering zero consequences after it was found out that these life-ruining allegations turned out to be false. Now, this story begins in the summer of 2020 at the peak of the George Floyd protests. The gist of the story is that Morgan, a white woman, pulled up to a BLM protest in Charlottesville and told protesters that they would make good effing speed bumps. And then when protesters confronted her, she cried and called the police. At least that's what Black activist Zyahna Bryant said. Zyahna took to Twitter and wrote, "The woman in this truck approached protesters in Charlottesville and told us that we would make good speed bumps. She then called the police and started crying, saying we were attacking her." She then went on to post a series of videos of Morgan's SUV reversing down the street, while Zyahna and several other protesters surrounded Morgan's car and called her a Karen. Now, I would show you said videos, however, Zyahna, who originally shared this video, has taken her Twitter account private, and the local news outlets that shared it as well have since taken the videos down. Oh, and at this point in the story, it's important to note that there was never any actual video of Morgan saying any of these things, but Zyahna's claims went viral, and Charlottesville Beyond Policing, the group that organized the original protest, also alleged that not only did Morgan try driving toward them, but felt compelled to say not once, but twice that protesters would make good speed bumps, with the group stating that the second time she repeated it loudly to a Black protester and added good effing speed bumps. At this point, the story had been repeated hundreds of times by University of Virginia students over group chats, Twitter, and Instagram. The rumors were given legitimacy by local media, with an outlet even comparing Morgan's remarks to the death of 32-year-old Heather Heyer, who was killed after being hit by a car during the 2017 Unite the Right rally in Charlottesville, which happened a couple blocks away from where this incident took place. People also used the video Zyahna posted of Morgan's car to track her license plate number and identify her by the next day. People found Morgan's socials and in the George Floyd summer of 2020 figured out that she was a white girl who was pro-police and the daughter of a cop. Once she was named, many called her a Nazi and a promoter of domestic terrorism. But this isn't even the worst of what Morgan faced. Zyahna then began a campaign to get Morgan expelled from UVA, using her Twitter to encourage people to send mass complaints to the school administrators demanding that Morgan be expelled. Zyahna then filed a complaint with the University Judiciary Committee, or the UJC, a student-run disciplinary system, alleging that Morgan had threatened students' health and safety. This resulted in the university issuing a statement and Morgan being subjected to multiple investigations, with the UJC ultimately finding her guilty of threatening the health or safety of students. This resulted in her being expelled in abeyance as punishment, meaning that she was allowed to continue school, but that a second violation would result in an expulsion. She was ultimately able to graduate, but faced several other sanctions, a permanent mark on her school record, and above all was left with a completely destroyed reputation. And by the way, if we fast forward a year later, it will be found out that all of Zyahna's claims were completely false. So what actually happened that day? Let's hear Morgan's side of the story. According to Morgan, she was driving home from work one night when she saw a dump truck in the road. Since the truck wasn't completely blocking the intersection, she continued on until she realized the road was completely blocked off. After realizing this, she parked her car and got out to see what was going on. The driver of the truck began to converse with her. They had a conversation surrounding the protest. Morgan commented, "It's a good thing that you were here because otherwise these people would have been speed bumps," then went and took a photo of the protest that was going on. At this point, a few protesters began to notice and record Morgan, following her back to her car. By the way, one of said protesters was Zyahna. Morgan then shared that the crowd began to get aggressive, shouting at her and pounding on the windows, resulting in her calling 911. And this is where Zyahna's big lie comes to life. Now, apparently she was shouting, it's a Karen," as she's filming Morgan, and in the background of the video, which again has now been completely scrubbed off of the internet, you can hear someone ask, "What did she say?" with another person replying, "She said we'll make good speed bumps." Zyahna then began to echo this phrase in the video, tweeting it as evidence that this is indeed what happened. And it wouldn't be until a year and 2 investigations later that we find out that Zyahna may have actually misheard said statement. During the first UJC investigation, which happened in September of 2020, a couple months after Zyahna's allegations, the student-run organization did find Morgan guilty, sentencing her to 50 hours of community service with a social justice organization, 3 meetings with an assigned professor to teach her about police-community relations, an apology letter to Zyahna, and the expulsion in abeyance. However, the interesting thing about their verdict is that they didn't say that Morgan was guilty of what Zyahna had originally alleged, with the jury's final verdict reading, "We, the judges of this trial, find that your actions on July 17th were shameful and put members of the community at risk. You yourself acknowledged, saying it's a good thing you were here, otherwise these people would have been speed bumps. Given the tragic events of August 12th and the context in which you uttered these words, you disregarded Charlottesville's violent history, a history you should have been cognizant of as a UVA student and a resident of Charlottesville. During these proceedings, you have shown no understanding of the risks this statement posed." So basically, the jury didn't dispute Morgan's version of what she said or even state that she was lying about it. They simply found her guilty due to what they deemed an insensitive comment given the political climate and geographical location of where she made it. By the way, news stories have come out alleging that the dean of students at the time purposefully tampered with evidence to make an example out of Morgan, with reports also saying the student jury found her guilty under pressure from Zyahna, who threatened to lead a student protest at a nationally televised football game that next day if Morgan was not convicted. Now, a second investigation took place, and this one, which ended up completely clearing Morgan's name, wouldn't conclude until a year later. This investigation, done by professionals, not students this time, was held by the university's Office for Equal Opportunities and Civil Rights, or the EOCR. Now, this investigation was in response to a different complaint Zyahna filed, alleging that Morgan had harassed her based on her race. However, based on the EOCR report, they found that the only allegation that turned out to be true regarding Morgan's statements on speed bumps was the one that she originally admitted to. Further, the report finally clarified that Zyahna heard the speed bumps remark not from herself, but from a third person, and this was again corroborated by the video that Zyahna herself took. Also, 3 out of the 4 allegations Zyahna made were not corroborated by other witnesses, despite allegedly occurring in front of a large crowd, and then 2 separate times, according to the report, Zyahna made an allegation, then later claimed she heard something else, or even that she wasn't sure she had heard anything at all. The 4th allegation, that Morgan shouted that protesters would make good speed bumps over the top of her car, did have one other witness to back it up. However, that witness contradicted both themselves and Zyahna. Zyahna then later changed her mind on this claim, telling investigators that she actually wasn't sure she heard Morgan say this at all. Despite Morgan's vindication, UVA's president Jim Ryan still refused to overturn her sanction, leaving a permanent mark on her school record. When the rumor was first started, Morgan recalls not being able to sleep for nights, with people following her in grocery stores and hunting for her car. Morgan was also enrolled in UVA's law program, but after Zyahna's false allegations, the director of her program condemned Morgan, with Morgan sharing that they essentially tried to kick her out of her own major. Also, due to that permanent mark on her school record, her future dreams of law school were ruined, and the intense stress led to Morgan needing to be prescribed medication in order to sleep. Morgan is now planning on suing UVA for violating her First Amendment rights and committing due process violations if they continue to refuse to remove her sanctions. While Morgan faced severe consequences both emotionally and career-wise, Zyahna only received praise from mainstream media outlets. Now, she had already previously made Teen Vogue's 21 Under 21 list, she'd been profiled by the Washington Post, the New York Times, and the New Yorker, and had spoken alongside Bernie Sanders. And do you think that after it was revealed that she ruined a young woman's life with her lies, that everyone came out and denounced her? Well, it's actually the opposite. Zyahna recently shared that not only has she been hired on to partner with major beauty brand Dove for their fat liberation campaign, but has also tweeted that she's been accepted for her first PhD program, and has been elevated by several other magazines and organizations since. So after really delving into this story, the one question I have to ask is this: is this the white privilege that we're constantly hearing about in the USA? Because on the one hand, a white woman had her life destroyed by maliciously false allegations, with Zyahna and others using Morgan's white race to further inflame the situation and racial tensions. Meanwhile, Zyahna, the black woman who made them, has not only faced zero consequence, but has been promoted by the media and major brands and is still being paid to work on campaigns. Where is the justice for Morgan Bettinger? And more importantly, why is it that Zyahna Bryant has only been rewarded for her lies? Thank you guys so much for watching another video. I really and truly do feel like this story is one that should be nationally known, so please share it with your friends. Like, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. Click the links down below to explore, and thank you guys as always for tuning in to another video.